this video, we're going to replace the heater core. I don't know that it's actually leaking, but the fact that it was unhooked when I bought the truck tells me that it could be an issue. And this truck has factory AC. From what I've been able to find, there's almost zero information about how to change a heater core for this. So if you come across this video, hopefully it's helpful for you. This particular one has the box under the engine bay that may look similar to a non-AC style truck, but this is definitely a factory AC truck. All of the bolts up on the firewall are actually studs, other than I think one of them. However, there is a barely intact sticker here that says anything AC related is not to be serviced from the engine compartment, and then tells you to look up a service manual for the rest of it. And I honestly think that the way this looks right now is that everything has to be done from under the dash. Now this, I'm missing whatever panel should be here, so that's already taken off. Maybe somebody started to attempt this job, because we've got one broken stud. There's, let's see, that one's probably supposed to be a bolt missing. There's nuts missing off of all of these studs. There's only one bolt actually still appears to be holding that entire box to the firewall. So I think somebody attempted this before and gave up. I am going to start pulling these smaller screws that are holding the AC condenser in. Probably going to have to unhook it from the engine bay side, and I believe this will tilt and slide out and give us access to the heater core. So far, been pretty right. You do need to take this panel loose from the side. And the screw off of the vent, so the vent can pop out just enough, and then these two need to be able to like kind of fold in so you can twist this to the side and get it out of the vent. Right now I'm hung up on the front side from where the lines disconnect, and it looks like there's a bolt back in there. There, you can kind of see it, and then there's a plate on the front, so that's got to come off. And don't worry about Freon and stuff, because to absolutely nobody's surprise, this system had no pressure in it. All been long leaked out. So if you know your AC works, then yeah, go get it drained properly. But I don't know. I've had any old vehicle that I've ever bought, other than, you know, my daily and my new truck, are the only things that have ever had working AC in my life anyway. So, oh well. Well, here's that plate that comes off, and what I can only assume must have been rubber at one point in time, but has since become a hard plastic. There's just no way. That one came apart as soon as I took the cover off. I had to forcefully yank the condenser out, or the other one's condenser. I don't know what this one's called, but it also had a piece of rubber that just was not giving and ended up breaking in order to come out. That, yeah, it should be rubber, but it's hard plastic. So, boy, we might have to assess whether or not any of these parts are even available. Because if they're not, it might be pretty difficult to basically get everything to go back together. I don't want to spend money on a vintage air kit, though. I just don't. $1,700. It's just, Well, it escalated a bit. I had to take the vents and stuff out as well as the glove box. This vent is the one that comes underneath and up to the top. It's literally held on with a couple of clips and it popped out real easy. Same thing, a bunch of clips with the center one, and it got loose, but had a couple of vacuum lines as well as some electrical connections here that needed to get undone before I could shift it all the way over and then like roll it to get it out from under the dash. Glove box needed to come out in order to get to those vacuum and electrical connections anyway. Now that we can kind of see under the dash here, it looks like that this particular one was maybe actually okay being hard. It was meant to slide in. However, you must have had to have a whole bunch of this stuff, like probably needed to be at this point with these vents removed before trying to take the AC core out would have been the better move. That way we had more room and we would have been able to pull the bigger fitting side through the hole in the firewall and then slide the whole thing out without damaging that. But that being said, this thing is still a split like it needs to go on, like it should have been soft rubber, and it's hard plastic right now. So this is where we're at. But now we can see our heater core. It is bolted in a couple of places from the interior side. So this is definitely a big part of this process in order to even be able to get to that heater core. The hard part now is trying to decide whether or not I can even find parts for some of the stuff that has broken on the way out, and or if we can even get parts for the AC system, because if we can't get parts for the AC system, then I don't know, maybe I just shouldn't waste my time. I mean, I should at least get the heater core hooked up and then at least have some heat for now. But then if that's the case, I'm probably not going to put the AC stuff back in. Alright, I've noted here I was just pushing on that heater core a little bit, try to get it to come out from the engine side. This is a bracket on top and this is one on bottom. Both of these come loose. The bottom one, 2 screws, it's nice and straight. This top one, however, has a little hook. So it goes in, like it latches and then folds down. So if you start pushing on the heater core, like it'll pop up, but you need to push the heater core back into where it was so that you can unhook this one and take it out. And at this point, hopefully it's loose enough to pop out all the way. But it is being kind of a pain in the butt, so I'm going to try to pull on it with a hook. And there is like some insulating rubber around it that's holding it in place. That's all we gotta fight for the hook. Acorns falling off the tree. Yeah, it's loose in there. Just gotta get past the friction of all the insulation. There we go. Oh. And there's our heater core, and yeah, I bet it was leaking a little. Well, that's not surprising. Not in the least. I vacuumed everything up a little bit and cleaned out the vents because the vents were full of stuff and pile of things in there. Definitely some mouse evidence, but should probably clean some of this stuff too, just for the sake of cleaning it. Alright, well, I did check. I can get some of these AC parts. I cannot get things like this, although this, I mean, there's enough of it left that I can reuse it. The one on the firewall though is going to be an issue because it is completely destroyed. However, this one is more of a flat plate, so I could probably just find some thick rubber, like, I don't know, mud flaps probably about that thick, and then just make my own. So I'm not too worried about that. And I can get several of the other parts, like the condenser, the dehydrator, for sure the evaporator. That was the big one I was worried about, was whether or not we could get that. It's kind of spendy, but fixing all of this factory stuff, I mean, rough math wise, it's probably still hundreds and hundreds of dollars cheaper than buying an aftermarket vintage air kit to put on here. It may not be easier. For sure, it's not going to be easier, but the vintage air comes with its own problems where you got to start like modifying all of the vents to fit up to vintage air's generic, sizing stuff to make it work. So that's a pain in the butt on its own. So I'd rather just deal with the factory stuff and make it work right. Another item on the agenda was the fact that the cable was locked up, but I don't think it's actually the cable locked up because that moves just fine. So really, it's the door that's locked. Now is as good a time as any to deal with that, because otherwise I'm just going to put stuff in the way again. Well, and that wasn't too bad. It moves now. All it was a clip that holds in the bottom of the rod here, actuation rod. And I suppose just the thing is with the core leaking, it must have caused enough rust down there that it was just strong enough that the cable couldn't operate. So I think we'll just add a little lubrication to this thing. It super sucks to try to reinstall the screw and plate. So I'm using a magnet to hold the plate and my socket on there to be able to get the screw started and run it in, because I got to reach way up in there. Well, since we're apart this far, I thought it prudent to test the fan and promptly blew a bunch of stuff all over myself. But hey, the fan works. Long as we're in this far, these brackets for the heater core were all rusty and kind of corroded through. Top one's not so bad. Bottom one's pretty eaten up on the bottom side, but it's, I don't know, it's holding for now. Maybe it'll make it another 50 years. I also cleaned up on the inside there and sprayed a little paint on because this surface was up against that heater core and all rusty too. Looks like I need to clean out the bottom of the box there again, just because it's got dust and crap all over. But yeah, we'll get that cleaned up and put the new heater core in. Should also mention I couldn't test the fan just with the switch because it looks like there's an electrical connector here on the bottom that is missing. That probably is what gives the fan power when it's everywhere except off. So I'm missing a part for that. Another note, here's these heater cores. They're slightly different. They look close enough to happen. However, this rubber seal or foam seal, feels like foam, probably needs to get pulled off and transferred, because this is all that came with the new one, which seems to only be what was along this edge that ended up leaking. So I better see if I can carefully remove this so that it actually seals the air in there. Well, of course, it's not quite that simple because, well, dimensionally, as far as in a 2-dimension, it matches up pretty good. The tops and bottoms are different. The side to the valve, we'll be able to use this stuff just fine because that's the same. And then on this side, we've still got quite a big gap over to the edge. Now, it might seal up on like just this corner, but the wall is not matched up. That's why this thing's got a taper in it. So I was able to scrape this off with just a screwdriver because it had like a little bit of kind of a gluish sticky to it. However, thinking maybe I can try to modify it because like the bottom's not going to sit in here. In fact, it's going to want, I mean, it's basically the size it needs to be there. So if I cut the edges off, like this raised area, and just keep the bottom, should be able to set in there. And same thing with the top, hopefully. Oh, I don't know. At this point, I mean, this one's shot. I don't think there's a different style, because I did make sure I picked one with factory air, and this is what I got. So, well, even with a bunch of trimming, it's not fitting great. I think I'm just going to split this into multiple pieces. Because I'm going to have to get the core in there, and then it'll just be a matter of stuffing in the seals around it best I can. Just seems like it's going to be the easiest way to do it, since this one was designed to hold the seal as it went in, and that's just not the case with this one. So now for the seal out here, I don't think that trying to salvage anything off of the old one is going to do any good. I had some of these grommets that were solid, and I just punched a 5/8 hole in them in order to pass through the hose ends. However, the hole is slightly small. I need a 7/8, so I'm just drilling those out. Fit these grommets ahead of time. It might make it kind of a pain in the butt to get the core in there. However, it'll be a nice seal when it's done. Well, check that out. I thought for sure those things were going to pop right back out as soon as I started trying to push them in there, but I sprayed them down with a little bit of PB Blaster just for a little lubrication and popped right in there. Excellent. Man, if only everything went to plan exactly like that. Alright, now as I was trying to push that side wedge in there, this whole bucket came loose, so there's only the one bolt holding it in up there. Not real thrilled about that, but I'm ready to start putting the brackets back in. It's a tight enough fit on the top. I don't even think I need a seal up there. What little bit might leak past that isn't going to be an issue. Otherwise, if you're doing it ahead of time, I don't want to take it back out now because I'm worried about them grommets and just causing more work for myself at this point. We could put that little thin foam, might fit up there okay. Otherwise, the old bottom piece and the side piece for sure fit in there and should get used. So I might use a little bit of a foam piece on the back side of the panel up there. That'll add a seal too. There, so I took that top restraining strap, wrapped a piece of foam around it because it's sticky backed, so I just line it up so it's going to go over the top. That way when this thing hooks in there and you bolt it down, it'll be sealed and it'll give a little cushion so that we're not having metal on metal contact to that heater core. Okay, ended up doing the same thing with the foam wrap on the bottom strap, just so it didn't have metal contact as well. And yeah, things back in there. Still gotta wipe out a little bit. It seems like every time you do something there's more dirt falls out of it or whatever else, but I don't know. At this point, I think we're ready to start fishing some vent stuff back up in there and getting it hooked back up. Although I don't know how much of that I want to do, if I'm going to have to pull this control box out anyway in order to put a new one in there that has all the parts. Well, I went to go stick the evaporator back in and went to pull this apart just enough to get it out, and it broke. So now it's just, I don't know. Since that one was already tore, I doubt it's going to hang in there properly. And then this seal is actually separating the inlet from the feed. So if this isn't in there, I'm going to have a huge leak. And of course this is not something you can buy. Dang it, that's the downside of a lot of this old stuff. It's just so brittle. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come up with a plan for that. And this part's still semi-good. I mean, if I sat this in there afterwards and tried to glue it. Well, I put it back in there and actually hung that piece in, and it's sitting there pretty good. I mean, I'm kind of pulling on it and it's staying put, so maybe wedged in there good enough anyway. I had to add a couple of bolts and washers to hold that whole paneling because it was flopping everywhere. But anyway, yeah, we had one broken mount down here. This one's kind of bending, but I mean, this one was just corroded off. So now those are attached, so I just got to deal with the hole through the firewall, for which the plan is just going to be a little gasket maker. I think I can glue the top and bottom pieces back on, over like that, and the bottom one, and kind of set this one in place, have some glue all around it, and then when I set it in, bolt it down, then it'll be able to dry in place. And then when it, you know, has to come back out again, if ever, then it'll, I mean, it ain't gonna be any different than it is now. It's already broken, so whatever. Well, that went about as smooth as a gravel road that hasn't been graded all year. But it's in there, and it's, for the most part, sealed up, so we'll roll with it. Well, I was just laying under the dash trying to take a look at what the supply was. See, there's that fitting back there with two hoses coming out. One runs over here to a whole lot of nothing. I'm assuming there used to be a vacuum canister mounted there. That is supposed to be the supply vacuum to all of the controls, and this one was tucked up and buried way down there. I'm pretty sure this one's supposed to be the heater valve, so we'll end up using this one to get it hooked up for now. I'm not sure what to do with that one about a vacuum canister, because I don't think you can get a vacuum canister for these things anymore, but it should have been like a little bulb thing mounted there, and then it would have had a one-way valve in it, so get engine vacuum, but then if the engine lost vacuum, it didn't just die right away. And that's the stuff that controls all of those hoses coming out of the bottom of the switch, which is right here, which operates these, as well as one that's hanging down here that's for sure going to be a vacuum leak. That one, that probably was the cold air inlet valve. And then the top one up here, which is why I think it's for that heater control valve, is because it goes into this one and it runs back out under the hood. So that's probably the only thing it can be. And I'm finding that that part that I need there with a broken lead is called the vacuum switch. However, I might have to do some digging, because I was seeing them labeled as a a single contact or a 2 contact, but I'm pretty sure they said 8 port, and that thing's only got 7. Oh, but it is 2 contacts, so we'll have to try to track down one of those to order. I see there's a couple places online, but the one that was popping up the most is all sold out, so yeah, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there. This hasn't been too bad putting a bunch of the venting back in. Just remember, with that big centerpiece, you want the vacuum valves to be facing up. So like it sits like this in there, you want to have it twisted like this so you can feed it up through the bottom, and then you can roll it and get it past. There's another little, I don't know, switch box thing right down here in the dash. You got to be off to the side of that. But once you get it up there, you just got to kind of wiggle around and it'll find a happy spot and pop around. I put the 1 mount screw in on the very bottom just to kind of hold it in place while I got the electrical and the vacuum lines hooked back up where they needed to go. And then I had to pull that back out to drop it down enough to put the vent for these two coming off the top of the box. It's just a little bit bulky. It won't go in with it in position, so that's got to be down. I mean, you could try having that on beforehand. It's just a lot more difficult to get to the vacuum lines and stuff. So I ended up just wiggling it down, pushed it up from this side, and then that one, it clips in to the box, and then there's a little like clip strap thing on one side where with it open you can slide it over the end of the box and then click it down. You just gotta, you know, kind of reach and pull, push, and make it work there. Then there's the one that comes across the bottom. It just has a clip on both sides, so as long as you get it lined up, and it pushes in, and there's just some little metal tab clips that hold it. Now I'm at the point where I can put this piece back on. I'll have to make sure I pull that blower motor wire through, and then the mount for this green one sitting there is that hole, and plug everything back in there. And this is just a temperature sensor that passes through the evaporator. And I'll put my glove box back in, and at that point I'm done with stuff under the dash. I should be able to change out that switch without having to take any of this back apart later, because that can come out this section of the dash if just taking the cover piece off is all that needs to happen. And then I'm on to under the hood for the heater stuff, but I'm kind of still dead in the water on making any of this work till I have that switch. Quite the collection of extra screws I got here. This one's from a broken tab on the evaporator. This one was laying on the floor of the truck already. These, on the other hand, all fell out of the vents when I pulled it out. So, yeah, these ones went missing on somebody a long time ago and just been hanging out. Well, at this point, I mean, if you subtract a little bit of time for filming and all that stuff there, I mean, it probably took me, you know, 4-ish hours. Well, I had lunch in there, so probably 3 hours and 15, 20 minutes kind of a thing to do that job. Obviously, if you've got all your parts, there's going to be that extra panel to come off, which shouldn't be too hard, other than a couple of bolts way up top on the firewall. And I had to, you know, fix some extra things along the way, which maybe you do too. So if you plan for at least 4 or 5 hours to get through this, it probably shouldn't be that big a deal. One additional thing would be heater hoses, which if your truck's already got them hooked up instead of hodgepodge crap like mine's got, then you don't have this extra time either. But as long as we're here, I'm going to be hooking the heater hoses up. I actually have a control valve now. It is marked with direction. It comes in here, flows down, and then out. We're going to want it coming from the engine, so it's going to need to be facing this way. I'm going to mount it really close here just to minimize the distance, so it kind of carries the weight with the hose, and then it will go down to the port coming off of the intake manifold, and then the return side is the one that goes to the water pump. So I'm in the middle of changing out this thermostat. It already had a 180 in it, so the fact that the truck ran significantly warmer than that, either we're lacking cooling in this capacity in the system, although it does average out and it's fine, we're also not getting the efficiency of it actually staying as a pressurized system because of all the leaks. So trying to take care of that. I got the thermostat off. We got a new gasket. It's one of the parts stores ones where it actually has the sticky back. Highly recommend them. They're great because then you can stick it. It stays in position. It doesn't shift around. It's just cleaning everything off and looking at putting this thing back in, and I didn't like the fact that it had these weird bolts. Well, then I went and grabbed a 5/16 off of my shelf, and I went to thread it in, and it doesn't thread in. And it's like, what the heck? And I come back and I compare it to the threads on this bolt, and oh, it's a metric hole. That's weird. Except, I don't think it is. Look how there's, what, 3 threads sticking out of this? I bet the whole reason this thing leaked in the first place was they put this in, cranked it down, and it just kind of like sort of got tight at the same time that it jammed in the threads tight. So now the holes are screwed up, and I need to be able to get a 5/16 back in there, as well as putting a proper length bolt in to actually make some clamping force. Just, why? Why on earth? I suppose somebody bought the no, I don't know. Some people shouldn't work on stuff. Some people should not work on stuff. Now the real crap part is, how do I fix that one hole with the distributor in there? I mean, I can take it out, but then now I got all the extra work of timing it again. Ay. Alright, that wasn't as bad as I feared it was going to be. It definitely went in a little stiff, but that longer bolt was just short enough to clear the distributor to even get started in the hole. And then the first like 2 threads went just fine before that mismatch galled it up, and then it was just snug the rest of the way. But it felt consistent. I'm not even remotely worried about it possibly have even come close to stripping out. So it went in nice. Now we're bolted down real well. That should take care of that leak. But hopefully we don't have anything else that's randomly leaking here and there, but might just fill the truck with straight water for the meantime in order to make sure that that is actually the case before spending more money on coolant. But yeah, at this point, I just flushed the system out last night with just run the garden hose into the radiator while it was running a little bit and kind of flushed everything out. Kind of sprayed water everywhere, but whatever. Big thing is just trying to flush it out because it was really dirty brown. Well, here. You can see how kind of nasty it was in there. Hopefully we rinsed most of that out. I can only imagine that if this thing was actually rebuilt, maybe they didn't blast and clean the block. I mean, based on the condition of the block, that's definitely not what happened. Even the heads look like they were only washed, nothing got blasted. So there's probably still 50 years of sediment in the bottom of the block, which I was just trying to clean it out to make sure we don't plug up our brand new heater core. So we're just going to be kind of stuck with what it is, because I'm not going to tear the whole thing down just to blast it and clean it out, because then we're doing a whole thing rebuild again anyway. So otherwise it runs. I just want it to run as nice as it can. Well, one more little side note is on that vacuum switch piece that clearly mine's broken and missing the switch guts off the bottom for the electrical switching. Is kind of unobtainium. Finding several years old posts online about it being a discontinued part. The one place that immediately pops up with the right part number and everything is listed out of stock, and seems like it's going to stay that way. Yeah, we might be needing to figure out what that actually turned on. I imagine because that's part of the AC switch and it's just the electrical part, is going to be that as soon as it moved from off, it turned on the fan to give power to the low, medium, high, and that it also once it got to a certain point, turned on the AC compressor. So that I really don't want to hodgepodge this, but that could probably be done with 2 separate switches. I'd rather try to make all the factory stuff work if I can. So if anybody knows where to find one, shoot me a message. That'd be great. Otherwise, yeah, I guess I'll just keep looking and see if I can find one, or we might just be forced into adding a separate switch somehow on the dash wiring or whatever. Yeah, the fan we could almost try to, I don't know, could change out the switch and try to make it an off, low, medium, high, but I don't know. We'll see.